Good evening. I would like to call tonight's meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. And I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. Excellent. Can everyone hear me okay? It doesn't feel like it. Okay. I would like to call tonight's meeting of the Tacoma Park City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Searcy.
Here. We're dealing with a little audio visual. Okay.
You keep going?
I think we're going to keep going with the roll call, and then we will have our audiovisual folks work on.
There's an echo.
Yeah.
Councilmember Landman? Councilmember Land?
Here.
Councilmember Bala?
Present.
Councilmember Schlegel? Councilmember Gilbert?
Here.
Councilmember Honzak?
Present.
Councilmember Westlick?
Here.
Okay. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a pause to figure out what's going on with the mics.
I guess so. Councilmember Honzak?
Present.
Councilmember Westlick? Just making sure there's no.
It doesn't sound like it's speaking of you.
Here.
No, I don't think
No.
so.
Okay. Can we, I hate to do this because I know we just got here. Do we want to give ourselves a quick 5-10 minute break?
No? Okay.
Okay. But it doesn't sound like, can everyone hear me okay? It doesn't sound like my mic is on at all. Testing. All right. I think we're cooking with grease.
Would you like for me to start all over?
Let's start over.
All right. Mayor Searcy?
Here.
Councilmember Landman? Councilmember DeBala?
Here.
Councilmember Schlegel? Councilmember Gilbert?
Here.
Councilmember Honzak?
Present.
Councilmember Westlick?
Here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much for your patience. Just as an FYI, we're starting a little bit later today because the City Council met in an administrative function at 6:30 today regarding the city manager's review. Just as a reminder, that meeting took place in the council conference room, and administrative function sessions are closed to the public. In terms of the agenda tonight, there has been a change to the agenda. In terms of our work sessions this evening, we will not be discussing the resolution regarding implementation of a community connectors program. That topic has been tabled until after recess to allow staff to have more time to pursue more cost-effective alternative approaches to meeting this programmatic need. And so that means for this evening's agenda, we will have begin with a, for the record, recognition of City TV's Emmy Awards, as you can see here. We'll have a presentation, the annual report on Task Force to Reimagine Public Safety Recommendations. We will have a series of voting sessions this evening, the resolution authorizing actions to facilitate the removal of unlawful discriminatory language from identified deeds and declarations of restricted covenants. The second reading ordinance approving the FY27 Budget Amendment Number 1. Vote to convene as a Stormwater Management Board. Second reading ordinance approving FY27 Stormwater Management Budget Amendment Number 1. resolution assessing the impact of four-year council terms, a resolution committing to respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse during public meetings. We will also have a consent agenda this evening. The items in the consent agenda include resolution providing for appointments to the Grants Review Committee, resolution providing for appointments to the Recreation Committee, resolution setting forth the dates of the City Council's summer recess. And then we will also have a work session this evening, a discussion of ensuring trans and non-binary protections. And so after tonight's meeting, just as a reminder, next Wednesday, August the 5th, the council will not meet because we will be on recess. And the council will reconvene on Wednesday, September the 9th at 7:30. And so with that, I am going to move to our recognition this evening. In recognition of City TV and their Emmy Award. Please join us in congratulating Alvaro Calabia, Bien Martinez, and Edwin Bernal of Tacoma Parks City TV, who have been recognized with an Emmy Award in the Health Medical Long-Form Content category at the 68th Capitol Emmy Awards held on Saturday, June the 20th, 2026. City TV was awarded for their videography work in the show Cicatrices Invisibles, Invisible Scars, a project that brings visibility to chronic pain and its real impact, as well as the physical and emotional aftermath derived from plastic surgery. City TV worked with Edu Futuro, director Andrea Salared, I'm butchering names, and producer Eduardo Lopez to share the story of Stephanie Gamboa and her life with endometriosis. You can watch the video announcing the Emmy winners online. And so if you all will join me in recognizing City TV, and I want to ask them to please come up so that we can get a photo op with the wonderful Emmy Awards that are sitting here.
Who gets to take which one home?
You cannot hold the Emmy. You didn't own the Emmy. You cannot earn the Emmy. Are you gonna hold them or are you just gonna stand around?
Yeah, they need to hold them and make it feel like they're on the red carpet. Where's the red carpet?
I know.
Oh, wow.
This means you'll never win an Emmy in your lifetime.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a jinx. It's a
It's
jinx.
a Susan Lucia effect?
Can I have you slide right between Alvaro and what's the
Take it. I don't want to hurt it. I know bad holding it. It's yours.
Where will they go? Are they going home? Or are they going to be put in some sort of hall of fame?
Ah.
We need to have a Tacoma Park glass cave. Emmy Award of Tacoma.
Amazing. And so with that, we're going to move to public comments on voting items this evening. Just as a reminder, comments are 3 minutes unless you have been requested a little more time. I'm looking at Arthur David Olson. I think we're doing 5 for you. 5 later. Okay, perfect. And we also just want to remind everyone to be kind. And so with that, public comments on voting items. As a reminder, we have the resolution authorizing actions to facilitate the removal of unlawful discriminatory language from identified deeds and declarations of restrictive covenants. Second reading ordinance approving FY27 budget amendment number 1. Second reading ordinance approving FY27 stormwater management budget amendment number 1. Resolution assessing the impact of 4-year terms. Resolution committing to respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse during public meetings. And then the consent agenda resolution providing for appointments to the Grants Review Committee, resolution providing for appointments to the Recreation Committee, a resolution setting forth dates of the City Council's summer recess. Do we have any public comments on voting items this evening?
How are you doing? Tom Gagliardo. I live near the middle school. It's Ward 1, but as I frequently say, it's more important that I live in the Tacoma Park, and all of you represent all of us. So fundamental charter changes, such as changing the term of office from 2 years to 4 for the first time in more than 100 years, is such a fundamental change. Now, currently, any 4 council members can vote to change the charter and extend the terms. The only way Tacoma Park voters can then have a say is by filing a petition signed by 20% of registered voters. That's more than 2,300 signatures. The requirement is in state law, and I previously asked you to add to your request to the Maryland Municipal League a change in the law. Tonight, I'm asking you to also ask the District 20 delegation. So let's contrast the difference between what is required to change a county charter and a city charter. And these laws both apply statewide. A county can change the law with 20% of registered voters or 10,000 votes, whichever is less. A city charter can only be changed with 20% of registered voters signing a petition. Let's look at Montgomery County. 10,000 voters is 1.4% of all registered voters. In Tacoma Park, that same 1.4% is only 164 votes. So let's ask District 20 to introduce legislation to change the state law. Maybe 164 signatures is too little. Maybe 250, maybe 500 works. Let's work together and figure out the right number. I think the voters of Tacoma Park deserve that kind of a change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comments on voting items this evening?
Arthur David Olson, Ward 4, Herbie Hancock Avenue. A few weeks ago, a stranger stopped me on the street and thanked me for making comments at council meetings. I appreciated the kind words, but was careful to note that I am not very persuasive. The stranger sought to cheer me up with the words, "They don't listen to anyone." Now, I don't believe that's true. If I did, I wouldn't be here doing this. And I'm sure folks on stage don't believe that's true. But there are people who do believe it's true. So it's no surprise that folks who feel they aren't being heard will resort to clapping, cheering, and waving signs in an effort to be heard. Tonight, you're considering a resolution meant to promote dignity and decorum, and, as explained in comments last week, to move any protests outside the auditorium. I don't believe the resolution is the best means to accomplish the ends. I believe this is akin to the situation this last January, when 5 council members voted against working on a resolution regarding federal enforcement activity. At that time, folks stated that given limited council time and energy, it was best to focus on more concrete actions to help victims, rather than on passing a resolution. The good news is there are steps to take in this area. The bad news is that it means work for council. To get people to speak more quietly, the council gets to listen louder. That means sharing your understanding of what people have said so they know they've been understood. That means scrupulously answering questions that are posed. And that means avoiding the temptation to speed through comments to get to other business. In a representative democracy, hearing from those represented is the most important business. I hope the council will forego the discourse resolution and will do its best to listen louder. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments this evening? Okay. No more comments on voting items. Do we have any general public comments? General public comments.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Ferd Hefner from Ward 3, and here tonight representing Presbyterians for Police Transformation, a part of the Racial Justice Ministry at Tacoma Park Presbyterian Church. We are pleased you have another staff progress report on the Reimagining Task Force on the agenda tonight, and there's much that can and should be said, but in 3 minutes, I'll concentrate on just two things. First, let me reiterate a point we make each time we appear before you on this issue. Please move forward without any more delay on adopting the task force #1 recommendation, creating and establishing a permanent public safety community standing committee. Some progress has been made responding to the original task force report, but that is a moment in time, and times change, and new needs and new opportunities emerge. We need to be forward-looking and continue to not just reimagine, but to actively transform our approach to community safety. This is too important to be a one-off. We urge you to act as the council to establish an ongoing task force to help keep Tacoma Park on the cutting edge of new, innovative community safety initiatives. Second point, we want to address the transition of the mental health pilot program into the county's mobile crisis team, or MCOT system. We are so glad the pilot has been incorporated into the county budget as part of the MCOT system, securing the long-term future of the program that we so actively advocated for. We're not terribly concerned that the new MOU is over a month late, or about a month late, but hope that the extra time spent on developing it will yield an MOU that fully reflects the nature of the pilot program and the MCOTs, unlike the previous two MOUs that did not accurately portray what Tacoma Park was trying to do. Beyond the formal MOU, we believe now is the time, and as the transition takes place, for the city and the council to develop, with community input, a strategic plan for the program, including desired outcomes, metrics, and effective and transparent evaluation systems. I would note we're not entirely sure what it means to be a satellite office within the county system, and are hoping to gain greater clarity about that soon. We trust that staff and council will keep the community apprised as you learn more. We remain concerned about staff turnover issues that have plagued the pilot program for these 2+ years. As this transition happens, it will be important to press the county to assign 2 full-time, well-qualified counselors to the Tacoma Park satellite office as soon as possible. Another key transition issue will be bringing the county and city protocols, supervision, training, and dispatch into sufficient alignment to allow the program to operate in an effective manner. We urge you to pay close attention to this issue and to incorporate it into what we hope will be a new strategic plan for this evolving and important program. Thank you for your attention to these issues.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other general public comments this evening?
Hello? Should I wait for the timer to start? Oh, there it is. Fantastic. Hi, I'm Barry Ebel, resident of Ward 4 and the accidental subject of much debate. I know many would consider this to be a form of activism that my demands, but I think my demands are relatively modest, if not for a national political fever and the need of a crisis that would be solved for the cruelty of few. My existence, even if not intuitive for you, is an immediate consequence of a medical system that treats the medical community, patients, and people with bodily autonomy and respect inherent to civilized society, It is the activist position that wishes to carve an exception. This exception is cloaked in the cloth of conservation, but is radical, demanding medical expertise to defer to politicians, that individuals defer to an arbitrary norm, and that we as a community defer the natural kindness and patience that defines us to the fury of politicians who would wield cruelty in the place of policy. The resolution today regarding transgender individuals, sorry, I wrote this up there. The resolution today ensures our safety from this unusual national concern and hopes that the few of us in this community are able to continue to better times. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other general public comments?
Hello, Eli Rice, resident of Ward 4 in Tacoma Park. I, again, would like to make a comment on the general discussion around supporting transgender citizens, residents, visitors to Tacoma Park, Maryland. To begin, trans rights are human rights and trans services are human services. Trans people benefit perhaps disproportionately from strong social safety net and strong human services. Services which already exist, including the Passport Help Office. Transgender people changing their names or trying to access gender markers are especially likely to need to access those services compared to some other residents. And similarly, social services. Transgender people more commonly face discrimination within their own household and their own family of origin. And so social services that might be provided by a teenager's parents or by the adult children of or nephews of an older adult are no longer provided by them and are provided by found family, by charity, or by public social services. So it generally programs which support youth autonomy and support continued care and community doubly benefit transgender, genderqueer, and LGBT individuals. I also am affiliated with Montgomery College, some of which is located within the bounds of Tacoma Park, and we have done research on LGBT belonging, especially transgender belonging within Montgomery College. And unfortunately, students report not only belong within the college, but within the land surrounding the college, interpersonal violence and discrimination from members of the community. And it was 29% of students do not feel safe on that campus due to their transgender status. And 39% said that they have withdrawn or dropped out of their courses due to housing insecurity or a feeling of unsafety. So, and again, this is university students, often a population of young adults coming out into their transgender or LGBT identity, and maybe an especially vulnerable time. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other general public comments this evening? Okay, we're going to move to council comments. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the line.
Arthur David Olson, still Ward 4, still Herbie Hancock Avenue, with some updates on matters that were introduced in 2025. First on bus stop shelters. Last fall, the city not only renewed its contract for bus stop shelter service, but extended it so that now the contractor, in addition to doing a bad job of maintaining their own shelters, will be doing a bad job of maintaining these city-owned shelters. There has been progress on bus shelters in the last year. 2 shelters were fixed. A roof was replaced there at New Hampshire and Poplar, and a back panel was placed at New Hampshire and Glenside. Unfortunately, the progress was washed out. One shelter lost its back panel, and 2 shelters have disappeared completely. So unfortunately, we are now have dropped from the D grade that we had for overall city shelters in 2025 to an F grade because of that lack of progress. It is past time to declare that there is a breach of contract, and it is past time for the city to stop spending time, effort, and money on the failed bus shelter program. Ranked choice voting. There's news in the District of Columbia. They had their first ranked choice voting this last summer. It had similar results to what we have seen in the city of Tacoma Park. There were 7 contests where ranked choice voting was used. In 5 of those 7 contests, a candidate got a majority of the votes in the first round, so ranked choice voting didn't matter. In the remaining 2 contests, whoever had the most first choice votes was the person who ended up winning the contest, which means that ranked choice voting produced the same result as a simple plurality election. And in one of the cases, as you'll see in the highlighting, a candidate only got 45.62% of the votes cast, which means that despite the claims by ranked choice voting fans that ranked choice voting always produces a majority, that's not the case. It's past time for the city to swap out its ranked choice voting scheme for a simpler plurality voting scheme. Dangerous intersection. Last year, I mentioned the fact that there was a slow dangerous intersection sign on Sycamore Avenue. The good news is that the city has taken action regarding this matter. The bad news is that what they have done is they have removed the sign. I have not seen any other changes to that intersection, which means that now, in addition to having a dangerous intersection, at least if you believe that sign, we have one for which there is no warning. It is past time to close that dangerous intersection and put a cul-de-sac at the bottom of Sycamore Avenue to avoid having a dangerous intersection. And then finally, maintenance backlogs. Last year I mentioned the fact that when the Carroll Avenue Bridge was reopened, there was a sign in that top image sitting at the bottom of the speed limit sign, a historic district sign that had been there before the bridge was closed. The next day, that sign had disappeared from below the sign pole. I went ahead and let city staff know on June 28th of the situation. They said, well, the next time we order signs, we'll go ahead and replace it. That was June 28th of 2017. And the sign has still not been replaced. So there is a 7-year backlog of maintenance issues in the city, and it's not just that sign. There are all sorts of cases where there are broken sidewalks, missing signs, misformatted signs, misaligned signs. There are 99 of those on the list that's part of this slide presentation, and those are the only the ones that I personally know about. It is long past time to give our Public Works Department, which is severely overworked, a jubilee year in which we don't ask them to do anything new so that they can go out and replace all the things that need to replace and fix all the things that need to be fixed and eliminate this 9-year backlog. So that's updates on stuff that I mentioned in 2025. I hope that during the course of the upcoming summer break, folks will consider some of those matters and see if there are ways that those matters can be addressed. Thank you. And I managed to do that in 5 minutes rather than doing 4 separate 3-minute presentations.
I appreciate that.
Oh.
Do we have any virtual public comments this evening? No. Okay, we're going to move to city council comments. Do you have any city council comments this evening? Councilmember Hanzak?
All right, I haven't had time to fully collect my thoughts, but since my colleagues are not stepping forward, I'll just read through. I am really grateful, as always, to everyone who has come out to speak tonight. I want to give a shout out also to the courage with which to Vera. Pardon me if I mispronounce the names. They are no longer in the room, but Vera Abel and Eli Rice for stepping forward in this space. I hope that you feel safe in this space. I hope that anyone else in our community who identifies as LGBTQ plus and trans would come into this space and feel that they are safe here. And we are grateful to you for coming forward and helping us comprehend what we can do as a city council. Okay, and Arthur David, I always just really, really, really appreciate you. The bus shelter issue is so close to my heart. If you were to ask the staff whether I had been annoying during some period of time, it would be maybe about bus shelters, because it spoke to me before, it still speaks to me, and frankly, this is one of those issues that I haven't had time to follow up on my own list. And I've been wondering what had happened with the contract last year that was about to be renewed. I did ask at least once, and then I was kind of waiting to see what the status was. So I can count on you to tell me, to walk around. You know, those boots on the ground make all the difference. I do, when I think about what am I able to see as a council member, walking around like you do makes a huge difference. So maybe city manager and mayor, maybe we're due for another walkabout. That was so great. It did take 3 precious, beautiful hours, but I was grateful we got some things done. But when you do these walkabouts and you feed back to us, I just want to thank you for collating that information and giving it to us. I'm sure that we all, and the manager finds it useful. The Jubilee year is a fascinating concept. I'm not sure if our community would support that, but for sure, the council also needs to make sure we fully fund the things that need repair. I think that part of that's on us. But yes, food for thought. City manager, I would love to request, but of course it needs to come from the whole council. I'm just saying it publicly. I would love to hear some kind of update, or at least be copied on any response that you give to Arthur David about the bus shelters, and understand where we're at with the new agreement. I had even sent photos of some really cool bus shelters in DC that I thought we could try to replicate, but it's the details are complex. And finally, Mr. Hefner, I did want to also acknowledge about the mental health program. This is also close to many of our hearts, but I have had the pleasure and the I have had the ability to navigate work with our mental health team on several occasions now. I think that I'm sure our chief would agree that there are things that we're working through, and our manager as well. So I know that we're at some point soon going to be due for an update about some of those things, and I'm looking forward to hearing how that will inform the progress on the program. But we thank you for coming forward and keeping us true to the spirit of what everybody's been working towards and your committee's been working on for so very many years. Thank you for your commitment to that issue.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. Councilmember DeBala.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all the folks who came out to make comments. I have a couple of points to make about that. One is I would appreciate the city manager looking at the list that Arthur David Olson has of the maintenance backlog and seeing what, coming back to council with what some of that may be in the works. I have no idea. Take a look at what that looks like. Ditto on the bus shelter situation. On the comment about county versus city law, I would, based on my experience with other outdated county laws, I would ask how old is that county threshold? 10,000 votes as a percentage of something from 1980? I don't know, but that would be a way to look at it. I am not I'm asking the question, a factual question, as to how old is the county rule that was quoted. And I'm not looking for an answer right now. You have my email. Thank you. I'm just putting that out there. but burying the lead, as I have been accused of doing before. The main thing I want to say tonight is it's traditional to announce someone's intent with respect to the coming election, either at this meeting or the first one in September. And so for those who have not yet heard this, I do not plan to seek re-election in the fall. I want to thank Ward 2 for being so engaged over the years that I've been your representative. It's really been fabulous. And thank them for the opportunity to serve in this role. There's already one candidate declared, and I'm happy to talk to any others who want to explore being a city council member or some other role within the city. And I am still around till November. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Councilmember Gilbert.
Thank you, Mayor. I too am appreciative for the comments that have been made this evening. And out of respect to your comment, Arthur David, about us hearing from people that we don't listen, I know I try my best, and it's a lot of information for us to digest and receive. So I will try to do a little bit better, but it's disappointing to hear that people feel that way. And it makes me wonder just how much harder I can work or what else we can do to reach out to people and make them feel heard. I had an opportunity to speak at the Lunch and Learn camp last week, and I want to say thank you to former council member Fulcher and Ms. Doris for the work that they're doing at that summer camp, and for giving me the opportunity to speak to what appears to be a great group of young people. And also say thank you to all the staff, city staff that are running the camp here at the building, the teen camp and the youth camp. It's a lot of kids and a lot of work, so I've had the opportunity to be in both of those settings, and I really appreciate the hard work that they're doing. There's another camp up at the church on Geneva. I know I promised to stop by, and I will do so next week if I have the opportunity. But thank you, Arthur David, for all the work that you do and the reports that you give to us. And I try to keep up with them, but again, it's a lot to digest. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert. Just checking to see if we have any other council comments. Going once, going twice. Sold. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone that has came out today to provide feedback on the various things that are happening in the city. Thank you so much for your continued advocacy and the church's continued advocacy as it relates to public safety reform. I share your pain in terms of the mental health turnover. It is a national problem in terms of the workforce shortages that are happening in the mental health, behavioral health space. So I too have been sounding the alarm at the county about making sure that they have enough people on staff. And it's going to be critical because that role is about building relationships with people. And so definitely we'll keep fighting the fight on that. Arthur, thank you so much for your continued advocacy on all things city governance. I share Councilmember Gilbert's sadness that people feel as if they're not being heard. We really do work to try to be as responsive as we can be, but there's still more that we can do and should be doing. And I think that one of the things that we're also all trying to do is just make sure that we're managing the workloads of our staff across the board. I know that's something that is of importance to our city manager, and that's something important for staff, council as well, making sure that we're creating the right environment for staff to do their work. I want to thank the young people that came out tonight to talk about trans rights, and it is always disheartening when people don't feel safe in their community for just existing. And so definitely look forward to future conversations about what can be done to make sure that we change that feeling. we don't want young people in our community to feel as if just for being here, existing in their own bodies, they are not safe. They have, or they're being discriminated against. And Tom, I'm looking into that issue. It was not moved forward as part of the MML LARs because, quite frankly, I'm going to be honest, I don't think other municipalities would support it. It is definitely something that we can look into and follow up with, particularly some folks at the county regarding the rationale for their policies. The other big things that have been happening, and I should have led with this, I apologize for not leading with this. Councilmember Schlegel is under the weather, which is why he is not with us this evening. I just want and hope that everyone can send positive thoughts to Councilmember Schlegel because we definitely hope that he can get well soon. Additionally, we have a note from former Mayor Bruce Williams. His lifelong partner, Joffrey Burkhart, died peacefully at home last Wednesday. He was 86 years old. Bruce and Jeff were partners for 48 and a half years and legally married on their 35th anniversary. Besides Bruce, he leaves behind 2 stepchildren, 2 grandchildren, and a great-grandchild. As specialist in South Indian art, he taught anthropology at American University for 38 years and spent much time in India. He supported Bruce in his extensive work on the city council as mayor for our community and the region. The memorial service is planned for September. So, Bruce, my sincerest condolences to you. When we are serving, our family serves alongside us, and so it is definitely a loss, not just for the former mayor, but for this community. Also, last week, I was in Madison, Wisconsin, speaking at the Mayor's Innovation Project, and I do just want to acknowledge the police-involved shooting as it pertains to Corey Ruiz that occurred while I was there. And so it is, well, right before I got there, but I appreciate and hope that the city of Madison will do what they're supposed to do in terms of the investigation. But that said, there was a life lost. There are too many lives that are being lost. And it is one of the reasons why we have the Public Safety Task Force to convene. It was one of the reasons why the city has been continuously following up on the status of those recommendations. It's one of the reasons why we take these kinds of incidences very seriously in our community. And so I just want to say my thoughts and prayers go out to Corey's family. And I did have a chance to interact with some of the protesters, and I recognize how truly, truly, truly heartbroken the members of that community are. On a more positive note, this morning I had a chance to meet a number of the 2026 Excellion Foundation's PEPCO folks. They have a STEAM Academy leadership program, and there were a number of students from Montgomery Blair and Tacoma Park who are participating in this program that PEPCO sponsors, and to hear about all of the future engineers we have to look forward to, many of who live in the city this morning, was really, really a treat. And lastly, I do want to thank Secretary Jake Day for meeting with the Montgomery County chapter of the Maryland Municipal League this morning, and his staff for walking us through the housing legislation that they may be proposing, and soliciting that feedback early, which is much appreciated. There will be notes forthcoming for those of us that were not able to attend that call. I'll follow up with Mayor Ashton as well to make sure that slides and things can be shared, but it'll also be really, really helpful for us as we are preparing for our next upcoming legislative work that we'll need to be doing. And so with that, I will turn things over to City Manager DeSpirito to talk about city manager comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council, and to our guests and residents. From the Housing and Community Development Department, congratulations to Chrissy Humbard, Economic Development Specialist, for her one-year anniversary working for the City of Tacoma Park. She has made a tremendous impact in just 1 year, developing relationships with businesses, initiating a new monthly business newsletter, securing new grant funding to support business owners, and launching new programs like the Legacy Business Program. Thank you, Chrissy, and keep up the incredible work. From July 27th through October, the back spaces at the Junction parking lot will be used by construction workers conducting pipeline maintenance along Carroll Avenue. The construction workers will be using the spaces to stage materials and equipment. We ask residents to please avoid parking in those spaces. Again, this is along the back of the parking lot during this time. From the Police Department, Chief Duvall is pleased to announce the Tacoma Park Police Officer, Investigator, and Civilian of the Year for 2025. For Police Officer, Corporal Brandon Addison. Investigator, Lieutenant Victor Glushkov. And Civilian, Mr. Ron Contreras. So congratulations to all three. National Night Out is scheduled for Tuesday, August 4th. There will be games, bounce houses, face painting, and giveaways. So please plan to stop by and have some fun. This will be from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. in front of the Piney Branch Elementary School at 7510 Maple Avenue. From the Recreation Department, the Recreation Department's Fall Activity Guide is now available in the City Guide, which will be delivered with the August newsletter. Registration for fall programs opens at 12 noon and will be available both online and in person on the following dates. August 5th for scholarship recipients, August 12th for City of Tacoma Park residents, and August 19th for non-residents. Seniors, join us for a fun-filled day at the Montgomery County Agricultural Fair during their special Senior Day celebration on Tuesday, August 18th. The cost is $6. Enjoy live entertainment, music, vendors, exhibits, and festive fair fun with friends. Spaces are limited. For more registration information regarding senior trips, please visit us in person or online for more registration information at www.tacomaparkmd.gov/recreation. Please be advised that Lee Jordan Field will be closed for renovations from July 20th through August 23rd, and Ed Wilhelm Field will be closed for renovations from July 27th through August 23rd. This is a slight change from the information given last week. So, during this period, the fields will be inaccessible to the public to ensure the safety of all visitors and to allow for necessary improvements. We appreciate your understanding and cooperation as we work to enhance these community spaces. Regular use of the fields will resume on August 24th, weather permitting. If you have any questions or would like additional information, please contact John Webster at 240-687-2202. And finally, from the City Manager's Office, the Youth Council application for the 2026-2027 school year is now available online. It is due on Tuesday, September 15th. A link to the application will be included in tomorrow's posted City Manager's comments. Our staff shout-out this week is from the Recreation Department. Please join us in recognizing Monica Diaz for stepping into the role of Camp Director for the remainder of the summer. Monica has been a valued member of the Recreation Department for the past 4 years and brings extensive knowledge of camp operations, requirements, and regulations. Her leadership, experience, and willingness to take on this important responsibility will help ensure a safe, positive, and successful end to the summer camp season. Thank you, Monica, for your dedication and commitment to our campers, families, and staff. That concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And so we're going to move to our first item this evening is the presentation, the annual report on task force to reimagine public safety recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The presentation is not pulling up. Oh, share my screen. Can you guys see it? Okay, so this item here is a status update on the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force recommendations. The last time we reported on this was in March of 2026, but before that it was in July of 2025, and we had committed to coming back to do an annual report. I have a short slide show. I will go through the slides, and then I will go over some of the 14 items that were in progress. I have provided a spreadsheet of each of the recommendations and then what the current status is, and then I will go over those few items that council members had requested that I say provide additional information, additional context. All right, so just a recap, the milestones and action recap. In 2021, the City of Tacoma Park Council established a task force on reimagining public safety. The task force was tasked with advising the council to provide recommendations for reforming public safety policies and procedures to foster a safer, more livable community for all residents, with an emphasis on racial inequities. The task force presented its original report to council in July of 2021. Staff evaluated the report's 50 recommendations and implemented many of them. Those that were not implemented were categorized in various categories based on the status at the time in July 2025. There are 6 categories, which I will discuss in the next slide. So staff recommends, provides the council with periodic updates. The last update, as I mentioned, was in March of 2026, a few months ago. In March, the council voted to designate a few of the recommendations that were previously designated as requiring council action. There are currently only 2 items that still require council action. These are the categories. So there are 6 categories. The numbers in parentheses represent those recommendations that fell under that category. So from the 50 recommendations, 13 have been implemented, 6 are institutionalized, ongoing, 9 were closed without implementation, and then we had 6 that were closed because they were addressed by external entities, 14 that ones I just mentioned that are in progress, and then again the 2 items that require council action. In March, the council voted and adopted a resolution to recategorize 3 of the 5 that were outstanding at the time. Those items are recommendation number 16, and that recommendation was the Tacoma Park City Council shall pass a resolution stating that the City of Tacoma Park supports the right of all Tacoma Park employees to have access to confidential mental health, stress management, and or peer support without fear of retaliation. This was fully implemented. The council adopted a resolution making the statement and achieving this item here. The second item was the creation, this is a recommendation, the creation of a community assistance office and community safety team with the responsibility including responding to requests for mental health, support emergencies, neighbor relations, addiction services referral, domestic violence, relocation when appropriate, and referrals for social services and homelessness. We had a lengthy discussion. The council held a lengthy discussion in the spring, and it voted to close it because it is addressed by external entities. We also do some of it within our departments here through the mental health pilot program and also through our HCD program, which provides referrals to social services and homelessness. And then the other item was number 17. Can't see the screen here. And this was exploring the viability of rental housing subsidy and programs to ensure officers can live within the city of Tacoma Park. This item was closed without implementation. There wasn't significant interest in the program, so it was closed. Okay. Those two items that still require council action are the first one, that was the recommendation number 1, which is establishing a permanent civilian staff to volunteer Tacoma Park Public Safety Force to ensure a community standing committee that monitors progress of implementing these recommendations and developing new recommendations following future practices. And then the last item that is still requiring council action is number 6, which is additional staffing to the HCD department, including a social worker who can respond to housing conditions, safety issues, landlord-tenant issues, homelessness, and evictions and nonviolent disputes between neighbors. We had discussed with the council back in the spring that some of these are already being provided internally through our HCD department. And there are also other county and nonprofit communities that are providing these services. But again, more discussions will happen at some point to gauge council's decision on these. The next steps is we will provide council with a status update again in 2027. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to read the 14 items. I don't want to bore you with them, but I did want to add additional context for those that requested it. So the first one was, as it relates to recommendation number 3, which is establishing a 24-hour line and an online system where residents can request a non-armed police response. We had mentioned our police department. We have thought about this. We've been working on this. And where we are today is that it is not feasible for police, for unarmed personnel to respond to these calls because you never know what you're going to find. Therefore, the staff's position is that this is not feasible to implement. The second item was the training 911 dispatchers and establishing protocols to refer mental health emergencies and other non-police calls to non-police resources. Again, similar to the one we just discussed, number 3, to have my apologies. This one, we did provide. We provided a protocol in March 2026 that talks about the triage process of how the calls come in and how they're farmed out appropriately. I will be more than happy to send that again. So that's the follow-up on that one. The next one was recommendation number 10. The recommendation from the committee, from the task force, was strengthening the existing methods of communications, i.e. emails, alerts, social media, neighborhood platforms, and explore new methods of reaching residents with limited internet access with other information difficulties, i.e. language barriers. So the question, follow-up question I received was, is our website translatable in different languages? And the answer is yes. If you go to our website today, you can select one of the many languages, and it will translate the text that's on the website into that specific language. What it does not do is it does not translate PDFs and attachments. The website is ADA compliant. Number 14 was the other one. This one is related to number 3, which is again implementing a non-emergency call number so that folks who want to make service requests that are non-police requests required, that they could ask. Again, it is not feasible because we don't want to send not unarmed officers. We just don't know. We don't know what the calls are going to be. Number 28. Number 28 was continue to create and strengthen mutual aid agreements. This is referencing MOUs, MOAs with local police departments. I was asked to provide a little bit more information on this, where we are, what our past efforts have been, and specifically to give more information with the MOU, pending MOU with MTA, the Maryland Transportation Authority. So we have, there's an MOU that is under review. Both agencies, meaning our agency and MTA, have reviewed it. It has been sent to the city attorney for review, so stay tuned on that one. I was also asked to comment on the MOU with MPD, the district's police department. There were efforts going back to 2019. A draft MOU was sent to the district government, district police. It made it all the way to the mayor's office, and then it got stalled, and several attempts have been made by city employees and elected officials, and to no avail. Essentially, DC has not expressed interest in entering with an MOU with any other agencies in Maryland. Let's see, 2 more items, and these are related to items number 39 and number 40. Number 39 is related to workforce development for those who are re-entering from jails or prisons. So this is for those who are underemployed or unemployed and who are re-entering the community from being released. So there are a number of programs that are provided by the county and other nonprofits. And it's also my understanding that those who are re-entering the community they have their own programs depending with the parole officers and such. But the question that was asked was, so in our recommendation, in our current status, we listed all of those resources that are available. And the question was, how do these residents, how do families access this information? And the answer to that is that we're going to post it on our website and make sure that it is accessible. Similarly, number 40, it is the recommendation for number 40 was create a Takoma Park mentorship program to expose students to new opportunities and realities and expose mentors and students to new cultural backgrounds and frame of reference. The city already has an existing mentoring program. In fact, I believe last year we hired a teen mentors program that oversees that program. In addition to that, there are a number of programs within the county by the county government that are available, and also the school system, a program they call WINGS Mentor Program. So the way we're going to make this available, this information, is list this information, the links to these services on our website. And just one more item. I was asked to speak a little bit more on the mental health component of the pilot program, where we are with regard to the MOU. We have sent a draft MOU to the county. It is under the county's review. I don't have a date by when we will get it back. But when we do get it back, it will be retroactive to July 1. And the county is still sending us mental health therapists. We have generally 12 to 8 p.m. to therapists Monday through Friday. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you very much. We appreciate this update. So I do have a few questions. We don't necessarily have to answer them here, but I'm going to read from the resolution that the council passed. Be it further resolved that the City Council directs staff to submit an annual report with the first report due in July 2026, summarizing the city's progress and actions taken on the task force to reimagine public safety recommendations. This report will be made public, ensuring continued transparency and accountability in the city's efforts. It seemed to me in a number of these that we're not talking about what the city is actually doing. So for example, item number 3 that you had mentioned, it's a statement that is implying that sending unarmed officers is not practical or safe. I've seen other models described throughout the country that provides an approach or identifies an approach. And so it would be helpful for me in terms of the status of this particular recommendation, and there are a few others, to highlight what it is that we have explored, what are some ways in which the city could perhaps figure out a way to redirect or educate residents around where those 24-hour resources are, and then in terms of a timeline of when that kind of activity would be complete. This to me doesn't read like things that the city is doing to address the recommendation. It kind of reads to me more like we're not doing anything because it's hard, and I don't think that that's what we're saying at all. And then the other components about, so for example, recommendation number 8, I know that there was a recommendation from the Public Safety Task Force that specifically called out coordination between communications department as well as the police department's communications person, and how does that work? Like, are we training everybody together, making that very clear? For a number of these where we're also talking about, for example, the workforce development work, I recognize that there are programs that are within the county, but to what extent are we actively participating in terms of making jobs available through these programs for individuals that may be formerly incarcerated and wanting to reacclimate with the community? How are we actually seeking out those opportunities to make sure that people who live here, who have experienced that type of hardship, can actually work here? Also with the mentorship program, I know we have our mentorship program, but I think that there was also, I was thinking about teen employment. We, of course, are continuing to see, not just with teens within our community, but across the region, where teens are just acting out and being teens. And so to what extent are we taking some proactive measures to try to identify things like employment programs within the city or jobs within the city that would make it easier for those kids, our kids, to actually have a job in the summer? So I think that I appreciate the work that's done here, and I don't think that this is going to be the last. This will not be the last because it's an annual requirement. But I would encourage us to make sure that in the future, when we're writing this up, we're writing it up from the perspective of this is what the city is planning to do or can do. And if it is we are planning to do nothing, we can do nothing, then the recommendation to the council is close it out. Because we're not doing anything. But to say that this is in progress when many of these updates are not necessarily calling out specifically what the city is doing, to me, is misleading. Councilmember Landman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Deputy City Manager, for giving answers to a number of questions that I know I'm responsible for posing to you, so I appreciate your thorough response. I have 3 comments I'd like to make. The first is that I still did find the response to recommendation number 14, which was that there be support for implementing either non-emergency call services or new call-taking and dispatching protocols to divert 911 calls to non-police services if appropriate. And of course, we do now have the mental health clinician program. I don't find it responsive to say sending unarmed officers out is inappropriate. That is not, I mean, we need to take that recommendation up and figure out how it relates to the mental health clinicians program, where there is dispatcher training going into deciding where to send people. But yes, we don't want to send people out unarmed to dangerous situations, but this is really about the diversion in appropriate situations. So I'd like to flag that. The second is that I do appreciate the comments that you made about using our website to make people aware of programs that may be in the county and available to us, but not city programs. And that, to me, is a good first step. You mentioned it a couple of times. But I just wanted to flag that, you know, this is a very ripe area to be aligning with the Community Connectors program, which I know you're also heavily involved with. And I would like to see on this list of things that we're planning to do, how it is that we're going to use the creation of that program that is going to be working with a lot of community organizations that actually have these types of linkages to the programs that we want to alert people to, and figure out how to implement this through, at least in part, through the Community Connectors program. So since that's going back for another round of consideration, I hope you can put that on the list of things that you and the city manager work on figuring out how to do. And my third comment is to the mayor and my colleagues on the council, which is that I appreciated Mr. Hefner's comments about coming from the church group and their viewpoint on this. I agree with his comment that this was the #1 recommendation of the task force, that we consider whether there should be a permanent citizens or residents committee to consider the status of the police department and policing, and with regularly reviewing and updating the recommendations as they find appropriate. And I hope that, Madam Mayor, that we can plan to schedule some time to address that issue on the agenda going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Landman. That was on the, I believe, the long list of committee stuff for the working group on committees.
If Mr. Schlegel were here, I'm sure he'd say that he's happy to tackle it. So I'll say it on his behalf, since he couldn't be here tonight.
May I? May I, Mayor? We have not been able to schedule, unfortunately, with Councilmember Schlegel. Our schedules have not been aligning as a committee yet. So hopefully soon. We hope him good health. And we are about to go on recess, but yes. Thank you, Mayor. The mayor has flagged it to our attention, and we just haven't had time yet.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak. Any other, Councilmember Honzak?
Yep, isn't I the only one? Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Manager Hapti. I have had the benefit of being on council throughout many of the report outs, not for the very first one. And I mentioned, I think the one I'm going to focus on, because my colleague said a number of other things that I think are relevant. Primarily one is the mental health issue. I don't know if we have a date yet, and I'm kind of looking around at everybody on the dais for when the next, not about a discussion about the mental health program itself is coming up. Sort of how is it going? Is that on the agenda anywhere? No?
No, we had one this spring. I don't think we scheduled the next.
Yeah, I mean, I know, for example, on my part, I have, as I just mentioned in my opening comments tonight, I have had the ability to attempt to figure out when and how to make use of those resources in the city with what I'm going to call it mixed success. And some of it gets back to the 24/7 issue. Some of it gets back to, I mean, I'll just share. I've had a couple of instances, not even just one, where I myself am contacted or I see something, I'm privy to something that I wouldn't probably be if I wasn't a council member. And then I think, who should I contact? So I call dispatch. I could call the chief, but like that's not always appropriate for everything, right? I'm not fully aware of what their protocol is. I don't know whether that's even appropriate. You just said that we could go review that. But I think the key for me here is the review of the protocols and how they're going, which of course is an internal procedure primarily that would be implemented by the police department. But I think it's absolutely essential that some of that dialogue is happening with those who are making use of the services, which I would imagine it also has fallen on some of our staff and or residents. And there probably aren't that many instances. I think last I heard there was 1 call per day approximately, and we haven't been fully staffed either. So, I mean, each and every one could be logged to see how did it go, how did the protocol work. And I guess I sort of feel like without that level of information, which maybe it's been collated internally, I know I haven't been contacted yet by anyone to ask how it went. It seems like it would be hard to put together the MOU coherently, and I just want to express that, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to do that behind the scenes, but doing it out here in open is as good a place as any to sort of see if we can make sure learning is incorporated as we're moving forward on this very, very important piece of our operations. And I've also noticed that, there are some challenges with the county, not just staffing, but sort of that county piece and then the loop back of where does the information go from there? Like, should it come back to me? Probably not. Usually I wouldn't ask for a report back because it's someone's mental health, but how do we know the loop's been closed? Who on our staff knows whether the loop got closed? I would just like to understand better how that's happening, because it gets back to that lack of 24/7 capacity that we aren't, if we can't do it, we can't do it. And that seems even the county can't do it. So, but what does that really look like? I don't feel like I have a grasp on that. And it's absolutely critical to the services that I feel like I can provide even as a council member, sort of, because I often tend to be a key point of contact within my ward for everything you can imagine. So this list is very close to home for me. It's hard to read that we can't do anything on some of these issues because it literally falls on me, and now I'm going back to work full time, and I'm not sure where those things are going to go. They're just going to fall through the cracks. I've got some folks who are being evicted for the first time, even though we've avoided it 2 or 3 times, and some of it gets back to, can we provide? How can I make sure? How can somebody that I point to, how can they sort of follow that case? And I know we already exhausted some of this in our prior discussion on our capacity to do social services, but yeah, maybe if we went a little bit deeper, I don't know. I'm sharing. It's a bit of a brainstorm here, but this is a really key piece for me, and it ties to some of the other ones that you reported out on. Thanks.
Can I respond to that? So, and we can do another session. We did, at the council's request, provide materials on the protocol of how the calls are farmed out, what the process is. We had HCD Director Devin McNally speak about his department's process related to largely homelessness, eviction, because that's what they are handling. We also had the chief, who is here, by the way, if you guys have additional questions. He also reviewed, in general, the protocol of how the process works, and we had sent those to the council. We can, again, I will send it again, and we can certainly explore having another session to talk about the processes and making those processes available to anyone that wants to know how it works.
Thank you. Yes, I am aware that those happen, and I don't know if you're suggesting that what you were also seeking was written feedback from the council on those. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is folks such as myself, I don't know if I'm the only council member here, but that there's no feedback loop that, except for an open work session, I would not ever give direct feedback about a particular situation because it's an individual person with confidentiality issues. But I would like to find a way to make sure that the kind of knowledge that I have become privy to, and not just me, is getting into that feedback loop. So I'm trying to figure out, where does that go? How does it get gotten from me, from others who have had that experience? Because I can't imagine that the protocol that was put in place might not require just some tweaking at some point. I mean, I know that they are always doing those kinds of things, but I would imagine there's tweaking that would be useful. If nothing else, there's absolutely tweaking that is needed to guide council members on what we are supposed to do when these situations arise and we don't have those talking points. So I don't know I'm not clear on the process that you're suggesting, or maybe it's not hashed out yet. We could talk about it offline later. I'm just saying, I feel like I'm not clear.
Sure, we can talk offline. And I believe, and I will check with the appropriate staff tomorrow, but I believe there was a sort of a flow chart that was provided, again, not for every situation, because different situations require different responses, but I would love to schedule a meeting with you and the appropriate staff to provide additional information. But as far as loop back, sometimes we hand off, and that's all we can do, right? Mental health issues or homelessness, we connect folks with the right resources, and for confidentiality reasons and a number of other reasons, we hand off, and we don't have a role anymore because it's been taken over by the appropriate agency.
I'll take this offline after this comment, but I just want to share out in full disclosure for all my colleagues. That is, of course, very important. However, it has been my repeated experience that the people that are involved are still living right next door to me, and I still represent them, and it keeps coming back to me if it goes meaningfully unresolved. And when I say unresolved, it means there's some pretty serious ongoing issues about safety, et cetera. And I need to have some way to know how to disengage, when to disengage, or whatever the case may be. It's not clear. So anyway, we can go offline. I just want to disclose for my colleagues, because this is really important information. I'm sure I am not alone in this experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzat. Okay. Seeing no more lights on this discussion, we will, I'm sure there's some follow-up comments and things, and then I believe, if I remember correctly, this is an annual report.
It is an annual report.
Yep.
So we plan to come back at some point with recommendations, draft resolutions like we've done for the other ones, to put them in the right buckets. Okay. This was just meant a sort of, here's where things stand at the moment, here's where they are, here's the status of them. And yeah, it's not a full, complete, it is a report, but we will come back with a resolution the way we've done over the past couple of times.
Okay, great. Yeah, I would highly recommend taking a look again at the reporting requirement, and make sure that you're updating things and make it more report ready and indicative of what the city is actually doing in response to the recommendations. I think that would go a long way, not just with providing the necessary clarity for current council and future council, but also the public. Thank you so much. So with that, we're going to move to the voting session this evening. The first item is a resolution authorizing actions to facilitate the removal of unlawful discriminatory language from identified deeds and declarations of restricted covenants. Man, that's long. All right. All right. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Deputy City Manager Hupty. Are you taking this one? Okay.
Yeah. So thank you all for the feedback you've all provided. They're very helpful. I think we've made the resolution tighter and addressing all the things that we discussed. Some we sent you all red line versions to show you what changes we've made. Some of the most substantive were probably, I would say, adding a clause in the resolution, the action, to have a clause there noting that we will have attorneys do a review of the modification. We didn't have that before. We've also added a notification process of sending out a generic letter to each property that is impacted, and then a few other clarifying information. For example, I referenced the specific code, the state code that permits and that discusses the publication requirements. And that is pretty much all the changes.
Great. And I just want to make sure that folks are aware that the resolve clause involving the city manager is just codifying the spot check language that was discussed last week, where Historic Tacoma would do the modifications, and there could potentially be a lawyer that will do a random check of a subset of those, just to make sure there are no issues.
Yep, that's correct. Thank you.
Point of clarification on that, you're referring to the new be it resolved clause that refers to engage outside legal counsel to review modification packets? I mean, does that imply that every single packet is going to, I mean, what you're saying verbally right now clarifies that this is spot check and not review everyone. We already know reviewing everyone is not financially viable. Could we include language that clarifies that? Because I think, somebody in future looking at this might conclude that every single one has to be reviewed by outside counsel.
We went back and forth on that. We wanted to leave ourselves wiggle room because it all depends on the budget, right? We've budgeted $55,000. So we wanted to leave ourselves some wiggle room, and that's why we didn't say representative sample or X amount. So staff's recommendation is to leave it as is, but if the council wishes to be more specific, we can certainly take that as a friendly amendment and amend it.
I think you can say to review, because I don't think it's going to be the case that you're going to review all.
We're not. Right.
And so I think that's safe to say. We can't afford that. I think it is okay to say a sample of modification packets. I don't think that commits you to a methodological approach, which would impact or define sample. You would have the flexibility to define sample without having to specifically call that out, but also the reader would understand that you're not implying all.
Well taken. Can we consider that as a friendly amendment and bring it? Okay.
Yep. Awesome. I think we could take that as a friendly amendment. Are there any other points of discussion on this item before we move it for a vote? Okay. Would someone like to move it? Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Honzak, for the seconding. Any additional points of discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the resolution authorizing actions to facilitate the removal of unlawful discriminatory language from identified deeds and declarations of restricted covenants, please say aye.
Aye.
Do you have any opposed? Do you have any abstain? All right, so we're done with that one. The next item is the second reading ordinance approving the FY27 budget amendment number 1. Just want to check with staff to see whether or not there is any other points of discussion.
No additional changes proposed. Director Chung is available online if there's any other questions.
Okay, great. Would someone like to move the second reading ordinance approving the FY27 budget amendment number 1?
So move.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Wesselek. Any points of discussion? Okay, seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll? Aye.
Councilmember Landman.
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala.
Yes.
Councilmember Schlegel. Councilmember Gilbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Honzak.
Aye.
Councilmember Westlake.
Aye.
Okay, now we're going to move to vote to convene as a Stormwater Management Board. All those in favor of becoming the Stormwater Management Board, please say aye. Aye. Do you have any opposed? Do you have any abstain? We are now the Stormwater Management Board. Now we're going to move to the second reading ordinance approving the FY27 Stormwater Budget Amendment Number 1. Any points of discussion on this one? Okay, seeing none from staff, would someone like to move it?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Landman. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert, for seconding. Any additional points of discussion? Okay, hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Searcy?
Aye.
Councilmember Landman?
Aye.
Councilmember DeBala?
Yes.
Councilmember Schlegel? Councilmember Gilbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Hanzak?
Aye.
Councilmember Westlake?
Aye.
All right. The next item is resolution assessing the impact of four-year terms. So I will quickly run through the changes that were made after the prior discussion. So there were three major things that were discussed. The first is making the title tighter. So we've made it a lot tighter, assessing the impact of four-year city council terms. The second point was to make sure that we specifically called out in a whereas both the pros and the cons of a four-year term. And so we have moved it down, and we added 6 in the sixth whereas clause, making it a lot clearer in terms of what the potential benefits and the potential drawbacks are. Councilmember Schlegel wanted us to specify a little bit more in terms of the new election technology, so that's mentioned a little bit more throughout. And then for the 5, the fifth whereas, where there was a bit of a combo between the election system sustainability piece and the council compensation committee, I kind of removed that to just make it about the council seeking ways to address the current election system sustainability and identify ways to improve council effectiveness, and kind of not conflating the council compensation committee recommendations with that whereas. And so with that, I think those are the only changes that were made. Are there any questions about the modifications? Councilmember DeBala?
No, I was just getting ready to move it.
All right, awesome. All right, seeing none. Councilmember DeBala, would you like to move it?
Please.
All right, Councilmember DeBala moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert, for seconding. Any questions, points of discussion on this one? All right, looks like everybody's ready to vote. Oh, Councilmember Lamont.
I'm sorry, I did have a point of,
Yeah.
usually I'm just out there trying to get ready to vote
Yeah.
at this time, because I'm first all the time. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the changes that were made, and I think it makes it more even-handed, and I wanted to flag for my constituents who have strong views on the issue of the four-year term, that the way this is framed right now, I believe that it opens the door to having a more robust conversation with the community about the propriety or desirability of four-year terms, so I'm prepared to vote for it, thanks to the changes that were made by the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other points? Councilmember Gilbert is ready to vote. I can see you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All those in favor of assessing the impact of four-year city council terms resolution, please say aye. Aye. Do we have any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Some folks are ready for recess. All right. Okay, the next item, resolution committing to respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse during public meetings. I did not receive edits on this one. So it is the same as it was last week. Just want to check to see if there's any points of discussion or questions about this one before we move it. Okay, all right. Oh, go right ahead.
No, I was turning it off, so
it wasn't Okay.
I do.
Go right ahead.
I'm not sure if we have time to open up a kettle of worms, but if my fellow council member Landman is choosing to vote against this resolution, I wanted to ask you respectfully if you might engage briefly in a dialogue about your thoughts on that matter. I don't think that any of us would feel that it's desirable that for such a resolution, we aren't in harmony. I think it's less powerful. No, I think it's less powerful, so it's, I guess I'm just asking for a brief continued dialogue since I believe it was quite late when we had this conversation last time. It's a little bit earlier in the evening. And I want to say respectfully to you, I am certain that we all believe in respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse. So I am not suggesting that you feel any differently than that. But this is such an important issue to me, and I don't think I shared this last week, but for me, this issue goes back, the need for such a resolution goes back a long way prior to this council, for sure. And I was on a prior subcommittee on this council and really struggled to figure out what was a path forward that this council could take that would be meaningful in a world that we're living in where there's just in every direction I can imagine, in the public space, in the private spaces, in closed sessions and open sessions, there has been so much behavior that hasn't been dignified and civil. And we talked about the committee members, our resident committees writing having their codes that they sign when they're part of the committees, and that we didn't have exactly the same thing. We went through all of our codes, looking at all the different text that's already in there, and asked what would be the benefit of doing something more. And we talked about the possibility of posting something on the walls here. We talked about, what else could we do? And I guess I would beg the question, if any of my colleagues, including Councilmember Landman, I know you expressed reservations the last time, and since it hasn't changed, I don't know if you still have the same viewpoint, but do you have any other suggestions on what else this council might do to help us promote the greatest level of respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse, knowing that we all want to see that happen? Thank you.
Councilmember Landman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The reason that I feel that this is not the right use of our council resources, and I want to acknowledge, I'm sure he's still here, although I can't see him, ADO's, Mr. Olson's comments about whether this is the proper use of our time, is that the perception of many people, as he said, people come and they feel that they're not being heard. They also felt earlier in this session of the council, not today, but in earlier meetings, that efforts made to, I'll say, enforce rules of decorum, and it bothers me that the word enforcement is part of this resolution, that felt to them and to me, as I understood how it was interpreted, as a lack of respect for their right to exercise their not just their First Amendment rights, but their simple right of expression in a way that they considered, and I consider for the most part, decorous and appropriate. There have been people that were clapping, but they have not interrupted other people's speech. They've clapped in between the speaking of other people while someone else was stepping up to the podium, and I think people are entitled to express their support for other speakers in a decorous fashion like that. We already have a resolution on the books that says specifically that people should not interrupt other people's speech. We have rules that enable the mayor to act when there is disruptive behavior. And I believe that the fact that the phrase the mayor used, clapping police, this is perceived as part of an effort to stifle expression. I don't think that was necessarily the intention, and I certainly know that in terms of the dignity index, that was not the intention of the dignity index. But to me, the timing of adopting this resolution right now, given the fact that this has been a perceived view of people who come here to engage civically at a time when we are also trying to encourage civic engagement. Noted, we want to encourage new people that have not been present that much to engage, but the people that do come should feel welcome here, and I believe they should feel welcome to express their views, even if some people get applause and some people don't. That's democracy. Some views are more popular than others, but as long as everyone is free to express themselves without interruption, I believe we have rules that make that the case. And to me, it feels like we are stifling rather than encouraging freedom of speech. I know that I'm in the minority. I know if I don't support this, I'm going to be probably one of the only person here tonight to do that. But I feel that I need to take that stand because to me, this is the wrong thing for this time. Even though elsewhere in the country, people may be disrespecting one another. I don't think this is a real significant issue day to day here. We had a disruptive individual who used profanity. That was an extreme outlier, and we should not legislate to address the extreme outliers. I'm very familiar with the situation that happened with the previous council when there was disruption from within the council. I experienced it from the audience, including all kinds of behavior that I haven't had a chance to discuss with you, Councilmember Honzak, but that was troubling, very troubling. I know exactly what you're talking about. This resolution would do nothing about that actual problem. So to my mind, it is performative rather than useful, but unfortunately will be perceived as negative by many of my First Amendment executing constituents and allies in the community. So I'm sorry I spoke so long, but you asked my opinion, and that's the reason behind it.
Councilmember DeBala.
If I understood Councilmember Honzak's question, it was what else or what in addition could we do? And I would say that there's a lot of examples of communities who have done training, who have done posting of the dignity index in the room where the meeting is. There's a number of other things that can be done. But I'm answering the question. I think the question was intended for you.
I'd be fine with looking into some of those things. I think that the timing of this, in light of our recent events here, is not conducive to community feeling of inclusiveness and welcome here.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Landman. I respect your thoughts, and I respect Arthur's point because he had mentioned the immigration resolution, I believe, that Councilmember Landman had brought up. And unlike this resolution, that resolution was actually summarizing prior resolutions. This resolution doesn't do that. I think the key distinction with this resolution is it's actually calling for people to police themselves. It's not limited to council members when you're in this meeting or residents during your 3 minutes. It is asking for us all to be reflective, whether you're on a committee, whether you're just a participant, you're a spectator, you're not necessarily at the podium. It is asking us all to do our part. It's not saying agree, it is saying for us to all do our part. And one of the things that I do think is really concerning is civility is being used as a synonym for censorship. And they're not the same. You can disagree, you can express your thoughts without disrespecting or making it hard for others to participate. There's one resident who is hearing impaired who called us out, rightfully so, about not doing enough in terms of accessibility. And it forced me to start thinking about things like, some people say, well, why is clapping such a big issue? Well, if the next person starts speaking, how does that pick up in the closed captioning? How do we start to make sure that we're using our technology, we're using things in a way that is accessible to all? I can't tell you how many residents have told me that they're watching. They know that there are things that are happening in the room based on our response, but because people are not mic'd, they cannot hear anything that's going on. So it requires all of us, not just the mayor. I mean, I get it. There's power, I guess, with the gavel, very little, but some, to try to maintain order. But I think it is important for us to all realize that we all have shared responsibility in terms of maintaining order, in terms of how we treat one another, how we present ourselves. And I do just want to call out, because I've seen some things, not just in this room, I've seen some things at community events, I've seen some behaviors, and I would disagree that this was a one-off. There's been a number of incidents that I've encountered. I've seen people be heckled. I've seen members of the community actually physically intimidate a staff person because they don't agree with what they are sharing in terms of their report out. So it's not just a one-off. The clapping was not a one-off. It was an indicative of some of the tensions that so many people across this country are experiencing right now. And the end result is a lack of ability to be respectful and see the humanity in others. And so this is just really trying to get us to, through this council action, remind ourselves and remind others that there's more work that we need to do, and we're committing to doing it. With that, Councilmember DeBala, is that an old light?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, Councilmember Gilbert.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to say real quick, I also respect your opinion on this matter, and I'm kind of been on the fence a little bit because I certainly want people to be able to express themselves, but I just think about us and our efforts as a community to bring other people to these podiums, people who are often unheard and are intimidated by these processes and afraid to come here for whatever reason. And I'll communicate in our conversation about the community connectors and hopefully to change that. I think it'll be very difficult with the manner in which we conduct ourselves here. And it's not a horrible thing, but I just know how intimidating it is to people who are even more afraid of this microphone than I am. And so when we talk about civility and observing without bias, and I know we don't do that. We don't. And I talked about that last week. And when you express yourself and you're not at that podium, and that should be the only place where you have the opportunity to express yourself in here. We're listening, and we're absorbing what people are saying so that we can take action. But I don't think that we are observing without bias. You can't be if you're clapping for one person and you're not clapping for another. And that's just, that's how I feel. And I really think that it'll be hard for us to get people in this building, in this room, in the future that don't come on a regular basis if we don't make some changes.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert. Councilmember Honzak.
Yeah, Mayor, I think
perhaps you should, I don't want to be like, I'm trying to have the last word, because that's not how I want to function on this. I actually wish we had like an hour to talk about this, because it's a national issue, and I can see respectfully that you have very strong thoughts about it, and many of the residents that you represent do as well, about the timing. For me, the timing is longer standing. And it's not acceptable for council members to behave in ways that are unacceptable, of course, either. It's not okay for leaders to be disrespectful. It's horrifying to me that we're living in a time where that has become normalized. And it was deeply upsetting, I think, to all of us when Christine Heidebrecht last week, I think it was, said the youth didn't want to come here and talk about things. And I thought, wow, I don't know what that's all about, but what can we do, right? I think we all want to do, what can we do? So I guess I want to put out a challenge for all of us to wrap our heads around, understanding that you may have reservations about the timing of this. I would respectfully propose to my colleagues, whether or not I continue to be on council, whether or not any of us here does, whoever serves next in our shoes, if we don't get to it yet, that we strongly consider, following whether or not this passes or not, posting the dignity index somewhere in this room, because I really like the language. I think it's very powerful. That's why it's had so much traction and resonance. I wish I had it in front of me right now, but there are certain questions you can ask yourself about where you are on the dignity index. And we could then, look at it while we're sitting here. And if we see something, we can all turn and say, did that fall here or there? And I think it could be, oh, there. Wait, can I just read one of those out? I mean, let's see, I think it's right here. Yeah, like a number, number, let's go somewhere at the bottom. So this is a really bad example of civility. Is a number 2 out of 8. Those people are evil, and they're going to ruin everything if we let them. It's us or them, right? That's almost as bad as it gets. And then all the way up to whether we ask ourselves whether we're treating each other with a number 8, the highest level. Each one of us is born with inherent worth, so we treat everyone with dignity no matter what. And I think if we could repeatedly ask ourselves these questions each time something happens that we question, if there's no rule about it, it might be a really great way to at least spark the kind of healthy dialogue, that we want to have. And Councilmember Landman, where in here did you see the word enforcement? Can you just help me? I was trying to scan real quick. Can anybody find it for me? Oh, I see. Sorry, would you turn on your mic? Turn on your mic so we can hear you. I see it.
You want me
Is
to
that the
repeat it?
only place where it appears?
Yes. I wasn't proposing to change it, no.
If anyone has any thoughts, feel free to step in. I'm just rereading that.
Councilmember DeBala?
Yeah, it is possible to change the word enforcement to application, since enforcement isn't literally what we mean there.
Yep, that would be a friendly amendment, that's fine. Any other points of discussion on this one? Okay, seeing none, would someone like to move it?
I would like to move it.
Thank you, Councilmember DeBala. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanzat. Any additional points of discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the resolution committing to respectful, constructive, and dignified discourse as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we have any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, all right. Now we're going to move to the consent agenda. Just as a reminder, items on the consent agenda are voted on with one motion unless a council member requests items be pulled for individual discussion and vote. The consent agenda includes the resolution providing for appointments to the Grants Review Committee, resolution providing for appointments to the Recreation Committee, and resolution setting forth the dates of the City Council summer recess. Okay, seeing no items to pull, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I guess we have to move it. Would someone like to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Gilbert. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanzak, for seconding. Again, any points of discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Do you have any opposed? Any abstain? All right, we're going to move on to our last work session this evening, discussion of ensuring trans and non-binary protections. And Councilmember Wesselek will be taking the lead on this one.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I want to lead a discussion on how we as a municipality might be able to better protect and support our transgender, gender diverse, non-binary residents. And I mean that of residents of all ages, right? Both children and adults. As we even heard tonight from some of our public comments, the trans community is under a lot of pressure, a lot of villainization in my mind, and being kept from access to basic human rights to be able to care for themselves how they wish and other things. So from that perspective, I wanted to talk about this. Let me see. There we go. Yes. All right. Just to start, this falls under the council priority of advancing a community of safety and belonging, the objective 2 as well as objective 3. And I highlighted at the bottom to support and affirm LGBTQ+ individuals and families, particularly transgender and gender diverse people. And I remember specifically pushing for this, or suggesting this language, because while it is a challenging time for gay and lesbian, bisexual, queer folks, it is definitely the hardest hit for the trans community. So I wanted to make sure we put some special focus on that. Okay, so let me just see. Okay, so I have been kind of thinking on this and working on this for about 1.5 years, actually, talking with residents, in particular just in Ward 6. I've met a number of trans folks, families with a trans member, and when I've talked with residents, they have said, please, anything you can do in support, because it just feels like we are under attack all the time. And I've had conversations about, okay, well, thankfully we're within the state of Maryland. Maryland has a lot of protections. We're in Montgomery County has a lot of protections. So trying to carve out what we as a municipality might be able to do has been a big part of that conversation. So let's see. So I have what are residents saying? That's what they're saying, where we could make an impact here as a city and how. Okay. So, and just for another background, this is a picture of the poster that I had up at Tacoma Park Pride last month. So I put it up there. How can the city of Tacoma Park better support your LGBTQ+ family? And I had out a bunch of Post-its and just told people to write what they want and slap it on there. I think there were even more by the end of the day. It was a very full poster. I was really happy to see a lot of folks were excited about doing it, and literally people of all ages. I think the first group was kind of a bunch of middle schoolers that just dove right in, little kids with their parents, adults. So it was an interesting thing to get a sense of what folks were saying. And then on this next slide, I have an example of some of the ones that were on there one or more times. One, gender-neutral bathrooms, affordable housing, a kids group for kids of LGBTQ plus parents. We could wear pins and flags to show support, teach parents how to accept queer children. Someone wrote e-bikes for queer people, and one wrote more ice cream, and that was seconded and thirded. And I will own that it was my daughter who wrote more ice cream, but it's true. Okay, so with these feedbacks, as well as I've talked to some leaders in the state and county in this area, I kind of honed in on 4 things where we could potentially make an impact based on what I was hearing. The first, support gender-affirming healthcare, and then I'll go back and say more about each. 2, no sharing of data. 3, improve and expand city resources, and increase public support. So the first, support gender-affirming healthcare, I would say that this encompasses probably some of the top concerns of folks, but given that we don't have a health department, those kinds of things here, so kind of, I've been trying to find a way to understand how we could do anything here. But I just want to lift up 2 parts of this that the community is concerned with. One is what gender-affirming healthcare can mean, and that it could be used in a very, very broad way, which is wonderful in some respects, but a little frightening in others, that things that might be basic healthcare in other scenarios might be considered as gender-affirming here, and then that could be a potential problem, a flag raised in some way. And the other is about who provides gender-affirming healthcare and how to keep those people safe. Typically, we would think of medical providers as the ones that, give gender-affirming healthcare, but it also is another one that can be much broader. What happens if a teacher uses a kid's preferred pronouns? Is that a good or bad thing in our current country? The second, no sharing of data. This was a common one too, about that this has been kind of a shift, that in recent years it was better and for us and other communities to try to collect information about gender identity and sexual orientation to better understand our residents. But now folks are like, you know what? We don't need to say it unless we really need to say it, because I don't want to put information out there because they're scared. So making sure that any data that we have as a city is necessary, and that we protect that data and it can't be accessed or shared outside of its intended purposes. Improve and expand city resources and increase public support. I'll say a bit more about those on the next slides. Okay, so if those were the 4 areas we can make an impact, I basically have about 4 buckets of actions that we could take. The first one would be pursuing some type of resolution or ordinance. You'll note no one has been given a draft resolution. One exists, but it is still very, very drafty. And I think it'd be better to put a draft before the council after tonight's work session to see what direction we want to go. But seeing if there are ways for that to reaffirm our support for the community, if there are specific things that we want direct staff to do to help, or and bolstering the sense of not sharing our data. I know we're going to be speaking about data security in the fall. So anyway, so that's one thing we could do. We could put language in a resolution or ordinance. I've already spoken with the city attorney a few times on this, and look forward to working with him more to see what would be possible there. The second says the Municipal Equality Index Scorecard, and this is a separate document that was in our packet. So this is a scorecard that was designed by the Human Rights Campaign, which is one of the longest established LGBTQ plus advocacy groups in the country. And it goes down and covers all these areas of how a city could be supporting the LGBTQ community within their city. And I can look at it, you know, there's things like non-discrimination laws and municipal services, law enforcement. And I would know off the top of my head, many of us would know, oh, yep, we have that, or oh, we don't, but that's covered at the county level. Oh, that, we don't do that, right? We could do that just from the knowledge we have right now. But I wonder if we would want to direct staff or some other kind of subgroup to look more closely at this to see what we have and what we might not, and if it's something we don't, if it's something we want to add in, that could be an action we could take to use this kind of as a blueprint to review where we stand on some of these things. The third is similar to that, but support through funding and staff. This is, some of these are the same as what's on the scorecard, but if we didn't want to do the scorecard, but instead just kind of our own brainstorming, making sure that our HR policies are as supportive as possible. If we wanted to establish or fund better any liaison staff members, these are things we could do regardless of if we look at the scorecard. The third one there, host a legal clinic for document assistance. This is something I would really be interested in us doing. Queer folks often need to change legal documents. They often need to get legal documents that others don't. And legal help is expensive, really expensive. My own family has spent a lot of money in this area. So with Trans Maryland has supported and sponsored some of these events, and I would love to see if we as a city could host an event like this to help people get free access to some of the legal support to help with updating, changing, creating the different documents that might be necessary for their family. And then the fourth one is visible public support, and this is already has been happening in the city for many, many years, and we have done some steps even in this last year to kind of bolster that more, which I'm proud of, like some of our proclamations. This past General Assembly, we had public testimony submitted for some of the bills that were the priorities for Trans Maryland. We have flags out in front of our building right now. We have an amazing all-gender restroom policy. So making sure that folks know that and are aware. So it's like not just when you're standing outside a bathroom, but this is a space where before you walk in the building, this building has a safe space. I don't know what that is, but visible public support was another key thing that people wanted if there was any way to do it. So the last one, I have decisions and next steps. I'm sorry, I should have updated this. This top one, like I said, the resolution or ordinance, whatever, that's tabled for tonight's meeting, but we will work on something if folks want. Decide if we want to pursue looking over the HRC scorecard. And from that, we would be deciding, do we want to add anything that we're missing? I'll also say that this is a scoring that if you went to HRC's website right now, they have this for, I think, like 150 or so cities, because when they did this for the first time, I think in 2022, they scored every state capital, every city over a certain size, a couple other criteria, just to kind of pull together a sample. So those cities didn't submit it. HRC looked at the city and decided what their score was. So right now, if you went on, we'd be able to see the score for Rockville, Gaithersburg, College Park, Baltimore, because those all had fallen into the categories that they were pulled, I believe. You can submit, and we could fill this out and then submit it to HRC to be added to that directory that they have. It's not necessary, but we could. So that would be a decision point if we wanted to do that or not, because that would again be a different way of making us visible in a broader way to the LGBTQ community of our support, because I would hope that our score would be quite high if we were to submit this. And then lastly, if there's any other things we want to direct staff to do, or going forward, if there's anything that would need funding that we would need to support and move through. So I think that's it. So I would love to help with any questions, get feedback on what people think overall.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Councilmember Wesselek, for all of the work that you've put in on this. Really appreciate it, and the thorough overview. I would be in support of us figuring out a way in terms of a resolution. I did notice in the HRC matrix, there's a lot of things that we are doing, and so I think that staff review will be really helpful. So for example, I know our library department was very purposeful in making sure, especially as certain books were being banned in other places, to make sure that we had a pretty robust collection related to trans youth. And so I do think that it might be useful to have our staff go through, take a look at what the HRC index includes, see how far and where some potential gaps may be. And then from there, it could also kind of help inform whether or not the resolution would include some other aspects, including directing staff to submit to HRC, and it becomes something that we monitor over time.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember DeBala?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this. I would support a resolution. I have 2 points on the support through funding and staff that could be in the resolution. One, the review of HR policies, and the second, the dedicated liaison. We already have one for the police.
Yeah.
So those seem like pretty easy things to put in a resolution as things we would like to see happen. The question I have is about no city resources used for detaining anyone for giving or receiving gender-affirming health care. I'm interested in having you talk to the city police chief and the city attorney, not because this is a bad idea, but because I'm not sure, there's no city law. So I just, like with immigration, I'm just not sure how that works.
Right.
So that might need a little more looking at. And I'm not sure I'm interested in a formal scorecard. Well, that's just my opinion, but I do think using it, but on the staff level, as the mayor suggested, to find those places where we need to do something is a good idea. I'd be more interested in what actions we still need to do rather than being listed as, wow, we're so special.
To respond on that last part, I understand the sense that it would be, cool. We could say we were on the list and our score's 100. But there is also a really practical side that families I've already met at least one family that moved to Tacoma Park from a more conservative part of our country because their child is trans. And that is something that's happening. So it's also a way for us to let folks know we are a safe place to go, right? That we are a community that supports, and we have a 100 score on this, and if you go on HRC's website and you're Googling and looking around for places you might want to move your family, Tacoma Park would come up. So that would be, I think, a strong reason to do it. Again, I'm not saying we should or should not, but I'm just sharing that. And thank you, Councilmember DeBala, for raising about the detainment and gender-affirming healthcare. I realize I completely forgot to talk about that in this, so let me give a little more background on that. As I said, there is fear around how some terms for giving and receiving gender affirming healthcare could be interpreted and applied, and we have our own municipal city police force. So residents, I don't know if there's anything in particular we can do, especially because some of this is more fear for how federal laws may change or federal action that might happen that is unknown. But a lot of residents they want to know that if there's anything, we will not use our police department in ways that would be harmful towards those. So some of that is in the sense of detainment, similar to how our sanctuary city for immigration is that we will not, participate in detaining anyone for just having undocumented status, for example. So it's more of a figuring out a way today in 2026 so we can communicate to the community and codify, if possible, that we would not use city resources, use our police department in any way to harm the trans community.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Westlake. Councilmember Lamon.
Thank you. We don't have the draft resolution yet, do we? Okay, I was looking for whether it was attached to something,
No.
but so I'll stop looking. So two quick questions, and I'm fully supportive of pursuing this. The first is I want to understand better the data point that you're making, because I'm trying to understand whether you're saying that there are data that we should stop collecting or simply stop sharing what we have, or maybe it's a combination of both, or maybe you're also saying data that we did have we should no longer have. I mean, how broadly do you want to approach that? And I'm not actually 100% conscious of data that we may be collecting as a municipality. So that's my first question. I'll just ask you both, and then you can address them both at once. The second is looking at this index, which incidentally is illegible to those of my age. So I looked it up online to be able to read the small print. Some of these questions, I think we are not, I would like to understand how this gets scored, because I'm worried we're going to come out with a lower score than we might think, depending on how it's scored, since it asks questions about whether we provide services like AIDS, HIV/AIDS services, and health services, and we don't necessarily have those services. So, if that's broadly, if we get to fill it out broadly, interpreting it, that mean that we have actually done a good job being able to refer people to county services, we're going to get one score. But if it's asking whether we do that, and the failure to do that is because we as a municipality don't provide any of those services. So can you reflect on that with what you know from HRC about how they let people score themselves, or whether they do the scoring?
Yeah. So if we were to submit this to them, we would score ourselves, and then and they would review it, and then post it to their website. The cities in the area that I mentioned, Rockville and College Park, I'm pretty sure all of them have a 100 score. I would be shocked if we didn't have a 100 score today, but we certainly could bolster it if we were short in any way. So I want to assuage your fears on that. And to better explain how some of this scoring works, like for the non-discrimination laws, it's pretty clear how it's not that, is it covered at the state level, county, municipal? So like if someone who lives in this city, do they have coverage, but it's from the state coverage, then that works. That's fine, it counts, because we don't need to redundantly also say something. So a lot of these are yes or no, there's a value or not. But there's also in each, most categories, there are flex options. And this is kind of ways to get extra credit. So like I believe how you mentioned like getting points or not for if the city provides services to people living with HIV or AIDS. That is a potential of getting 2 extra points. It's not, it wouldn't be a -2 because we don't have it. It would be an add-on. So this is why you should be, we could get to 100 because that is the max that they allow. We might have more than 100, but it would only count as that. Does that answer that? Okay, and then the data question. So I guess that's part of what I want to better understand is what data do we have? Do we need it? But, for example, our recreation programs with children, we most likely have gender data. It's a great thing in theory that in recent years we've probably expanded that besides just a male-female binary. Do we still want to keep that? Is that necessary? Because just thinking that through and making sure that the data that we have is necessary, serving a purpose, given the climate that we live in today, and making sure that there isn't data that could be accessed in any way. Does that kind of answer what you're thinking?
I think you're basically indicating that we don't actually know if we're the Recreation Department could probably answer that in 2 seconds, but, that we want to not collect information that could potentially be harmful. Even if we're collecting it now, we would stop. That's your
and I
suggestion
apologize
for-
because I have talked with the city manager about this. I'm almost positive we got confirmation that the rec center does have that data. It might have even been on voter registration forms. It was kind of it was only a couple places, but they were vast. They were ones with long lists. So again, worth looking into, deciding if how necessary or not. Because like I said, that hearing directly from folks in the community, it's like 10 years ago, it was great that we started to track this. I don't know about anymore. Maybe we don't want that anymore right now. So just thinking it through as prior expansion was the way to support that community, but now we might better need to protect that community.
Thank you, Councilmember Westlake. Councilmember Hanzat.
I just want to double down on the thank you for the work. I know you've been working on this for a long time. I'm thinking that it sounds to me like it would be a useful exercise to go through the index. At the same time, I personally will express that I don't necessarily consider that to be the #1 priority. From what I'm hearing you saying, it sounds like we need to do some very critical, time-sensitive work immediately on data privacy issues and on possibly something related to our police force. Basically an effort to emulate every aspect of our sanctuary city policy for immigrants that is that we think is most critically aligned with safety considerations for our community, really life and death imprisonment sort of safety issues. I do think it's time sensitive. I think we have a moral imperative to deal with it. I guess, so my question is how do you think we could get there most efficiently and quickly, given that we're about to go on recess too? We don't have that much time before November when this council will potentially change. And then secondly, do you happen to have any information from all the data you've been gathering or the information you're hearing about
what are some of the most difficult policy achievements that have been hard for the trans community to achieve for their safety, in particular in other communities where they're already making progress on these that are really meaningful? Like, is there something that's like, other cities won't do this, but maybe Tacoma Park would, that would really, really make a difference? And you may not have an answer right now. I'm just thinking, you know, one of the things that we're so great about as a city is we're really nimble and willing to do things that maybe other cities might not. And we've already got a pretty substantial trans community. I know a number of people have moved to our community even recently. I don't necessarily want to, you know, draw excessive attention. So data privacy seems really, really essential right now, but I'm not even sure what that means. So maybe that's our number one priority right now, is just solving for that problem ASAP and putting resources behind it.
Yeah. Thank you. I agree that I think that those two are like the top, most time-sensitive possible things that we could try to tackle. I spoke yesterday, the day before, with our city attorney at length about the draft resolution that I've already put together on this front. And he and I both discussed that he's open and available to keep talking and working through it with me to see what we could do, where it might make sense, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm intending to keep working on that over the August recess, because I would like to, the next time we talk about this, have something in front of us to work on. And I agree, I'd like to move forward as best as possible. So, because I think that, as well as the knowing that we're going to have a work session, I believe in September, about data security, that's already, you know, on the docket for the city writ large. It's already on, I think it's on a rolling agenda already. If it's not, I know it would be soon. So I feel a lot better knowing that we're going to be talking about that soon. And we've had this discussion first, so we can think of this, remember this lens to look at it for our data. You said more. I can't remember.
No, thank you for that. One thing I will say is I've also made sure that our legislative advocate knows that this is an area that the city is looking into. She has her ear to the ground to identify whether or not there may be any potential legislative priorities that are coming out from some of the various trans advocacy groups that might relate to this, or if there were any lessons learned during the last session that we might be able to also adopt. So I think, Councilmember Westlake, I appreciate you bringing this up at this time, because it allows us the time over recess. People think, oh, recess, you do nothing. No, recess is when you catch up on all of the stuff that you wanted to do, but you couldn't do because you had to prep for all these meetings. So I do know that Anne, and I spoke to her Tuesday, is also looking into this as well. So there may be some different avenues that we may be able to take in order to identify these options that have been laid out, but also some other options that maybe we're not familiar with.
I remembered the other thing Councilmember Hanzak brought up about what we might be able to do that's above and, or what might be above and beyond that any cities are doing or could doing. I think that what that would be us voting on some kind of resolution. A lot of cities over the last several years, there's been a movement to have more and more city councils have passed resolutions saying that they're a place of safety for the trans community, similar to, from the perspective of immigration status. This, I would say, since the last federal election, there was another big burst of ones. I have samples from several cities in Massachusetts, small and large, of what they put out, say that they were in support and what they were able to do. But for example, you know, like I said, we don't have health services. If we had health services, that would be a different arena, right? Because then you could put in that whatever you'd be able to say there. And I will also add that when I first was talking with folks and I mentioned, and I literally just saying, what if we did a resolution? What it would say, like, you know, I was actually really surprised how much the residents said yes. And I was like, oh, okay, because I don't want to do something that's just performative. I want to do the things that actually would be action. And it was from that lens of thinking, like, even if after talking with the attorney and who knows what we can put in it, what we actually have legal control over, I think even the act of us doing something, voting on something, is in and of itself a boost, a support of the community. I hope, and it sounds like we want to do more than that, but that I think is that next step. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Lamon.
Sorry, Dr. Google has just told me that Maryland has a law equivalent to the no cooperation on 287 for gender for people coming after gender affirming care. A Maryland Matters article that it's cited from 2023 indicates that Maryland has such a law. I think they have Westmore signing it in their photo here, but they also say in the article that in a number of states, municipalities have also gone on to enact laws analogous. So it looks to me like we may already have something in place at a state level. Of course, this is like 30 seconds worth of research, but it suggests we might have a place to begin there.
Yep. Yeah.
Right, and that is something that Ann has been looking at as well, as to whether or not there are any gaps. We have a pretty strong, at the state level, pretty strong laws in place regarding gender affirming care, not only as it relates to provider protections, but also as it relates to the use of Medicaid dollars. That was more recently the use of Medicaid dollars for gender affirming care is allowed in the state of Maryland. And so I think the challenge that Council Member Wesselek has been trying to noodle over is, you know, where are those gaps that could only be strengthened through work that the council could put forward and have the city do to make sure we have that added protection. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Councilmember Wesselek. We're going to see this back when we come back from recess. And with that, barring any prevention, I want to bang this gavel and send us officially into summer recess. Excellent. Thank you.